G'day viewers, how you doing? It's time for a nice cool drink. An iced tea. Now that we've got that terrible joke out of the way, let's learn how to set up and drive the ICET. Climb in, step up, shut the door so the passengers don't get in. Wander into the first class section. Ooh, posh. Wander into the driver's compartment. Even more posh. And sit down in the giant chair. Okay, let's go. First thing we want to do, down here we can see our battery is already on and we have line voltage and all those sorts of things. So let's start from the left here. We're going to turn on SIFA. SIFA is the alerter or vigilant signal that goes, oi, you awake? And if you're not awake, it stops the train. Then we'll turn on PZB, which is the signalling safety system. You need to acknowledge adverse signals and get down to an appropriate speed, or it'll stop the train. Then we'll turn on LZB, which is kind of automatic train control to some extent. I don't think the Fulda route's actually got it, so we'll turn it on anyway. It's fine. GNT is the system that allows you to go faster if you're in a speed zone where you're allowed. And then there's Neitec, which is the tilting system, so we'll turn that on as well. Okay, we're going to release the parking brake, or I think it already was in this case. We have wipers here, wiper speed for the intermittent. We have our door controls here. We can open the doors now. Actually, we can't because I haven't done the reverser yet. Reverser. Now we can open the doors. There we go. And you'll see some levers jiggling in this thing because the rail driver implementation in this train's not amazing, I have to say. Alright, we've got horn here if you want. No, that's sand. We've got horn here if you want to. Or you can stomp on it if you want. Alright, we have PZB, acknowledge and release and override in the usual positions. You will need these, pantograph and main circuit breaker controls. Because if you have an emergency stop, guess what? Now, I can see on this screen that AFB is turned off. So, let's just get out of this screen and go into this screen and turn AFB on. And we want it to be VSOL Frigabe. Now, you'd think that this would be scroll buttons, but no, it's not. You have to choose it from the menu. There we go. And if you want to turn it off again, it's number 1. Okay, we go back to the main menu. And we can pop right out of that screen now because we're not doing anything else in it. It's time to lock the doors. You can use the control here, or you can use the usual ones that you use. U or Y on the keyboard, U for right, Y for left, or you can your D-pad buttons on your controller, left and right. All right. Okay, so we can release the brakes. They already are. Just make sure. And so that's the Bremsung control, which slows you down. This is the Fahren control, which speeds you up. But we've turned on AFB, so if I give it some speed right now, give it some power, nothing will happen because our little AFB marker, if we look at this screen, is sitting on 0. We want to fix that, and you use this control for that. I'm going to put it up to 40 because that's the speed limit here. You should really do about 5 under the limit, but this train seems to do it in 10s rather than 5s. And after I've moved AFB, I probably need to put the throttle back to off and move it again. Yes, I do. We can see the little yellow marker means that it's recognized my throttle setting, and the blue is the power it's starting to apply. And you heard it release the brakes too, that little squeal. PZB is telling me it's safe to release, so I will do that. That's with this control here. Or you can press the appropriate key, which is I think the end key on the keyboard from memory. I have my own funny little box for PZB. Now, we won't exceed 40 kilometers an hour because I have set AFB to do that, so we don't need to worry too much about, even if we were in monitoring, it would be fine. So, first thing I want to show you is emergency stop. Someone jumped out in front of us, whack the big button. You've run over them anyway because it's a train, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Need to be very resilient as a train driver, so we'll put our throttle back to off. We will apply some brake to take control, and the train will stop, and you'll notice it's gotten rather quiet. I'll show you why in a moment. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to release the emergency brake control. There is another one down here. So this one's more of a park brake, I guess, because it doesn't actually knock the panto down. But the one I hit, the emergency mushroom, front panto's down, back panto's down. Okay, remember those controls I told you were going to need? Well, now we need them. So we've got to put our pantograph up. And if we go back here, we can see it has come up. Very good. And then we close the main breaker. Don't be in too much of a hurry. Wait until you see line voltage on the screen here, this big blue bar. Then close the breaker. And you'll hear things start to wake up again. There's no big telltale clunk on this train though. Alright, at this point, we should, in theory, be able to release the brakes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the AFB back to 0. And I'm going to put it up to 40. I don't think you actually have to do that, but it pays to be prudent, I think. So, yes, see all those things happening? That's because it's reading the rail driver. The rail driver didn't do anything. That's okay. This is one of those trains I'll probably turn the rail driver off for when I'm driving. We can see that we are going to be allowed to drive again, so that's great. Now, if you go too fast and you see a red S come up, or a red G come up and your train stops, you'll have a penalty brake and you'll have to wait it out. I probably won't demonstrate that. We can give it some more beans now. High-speed trains generally aren't that fast to accelerate. They go fast, they don't accelerate all that well. This one's not actually very fast compared to the rest of the ICE family. It's one of the slower ones. Not sure if its max speed's printed up anywhere, but it's not very high. And this one's assigned to curvy routes generally, so that's what it's for. Alright, we are allowed up to 80, so we can increase our AFB. There are hotkeys for this. They are F and G from memory on the keyboard. There are controller buttons for it as well if you jump into the controller help. You don't have to use the lever. Now, the first time SIFA sounds, I will acknowledge SIFA. SIFA. So I'll acknowledge that with the Q key, or circle or B on your controller, depending on your particular flavour, whether you have chocolate or strawberry. Sorry, Xbox or PlayStation. Still allowed to do 80, although the thing said 90. I saw a sign that said 80, so I'm going to believe 80. It's probably an upcoming one. Now, if you don't acknowledge SIFA, it's going to stop you. Now, you can whack the SIFA button anytime you want. What it's actually doing, it's bonking on the pedal down here. See how it lifts? So normally your foot's holding that down, and periodically you lift your foot. And it's just something that drivers do to let the train know that they're there. So in a normal driver's day, you wouldn't actually see the SIFA light come on or hear it going, SIFA, SIFA. So we shall let this continue for the moment. Coming up to a new speed zone of 120, but then we're down to 100 again. Now, next time SIFA happens, I'm just going to let it stop the train so I can show you what to do. Now, it may not happen because the rail driver's jiggling the controls. Here it comes. You can see the little SIFA symbol down here, which is lift your boot. See? Lift your boot. And you can see that the train is now braking us, which is fine. So we'll put the throttle back to 0. And we'll take control with our brakes. Once the train comes to a complete stop, we'll reset SIFA. Now, before it gets into a full-on brake, you actually can just acknowledge it. So as it's starting to brake, if you whack the acknowledge quickly enough, the brake will be cancelled. So I can show you that as well. Don't quite know why AFB just went to 0 then, but that's okay. That's fine. It's all good. Alright. Let's go. Now we can see we can put some power on, and it is working. Next time SIFA triggers, I will show you that it can just be reset. You've got to be pretty quick though, because if it starts braking properly, it won't reset. I've been thinking about buying a pedal for SIFA. I think it'd be cool to just have your foot on the thing and just lift it occasionally. There's the boot. So we'll reset that. You see it does nothing when you reset it. We'll add up to 110 in a moment. See, this train does have suspension. It's got a bit of rock and roll to it, which is nice to have. When the back of our train gets past that speed sign, we'll be allowed to pick up some speed. 110, there we go. Whoops, not that far. Now let's let it go. I'm hovering over the button and brakes are starting to come on and I can reset it. It's not going to brake, but I do have to put my throttle back to off and wake it up again. And I might have been a bit too quick on that. Let's try that again. And off we go again. There we go. Yeah, I was just a bit quick. So you've got to dwell in off for a little while for it to notice that you were there. Alrighty, we're almost up to the spot where we can do 150. And do we see the tilt yet? Yeah, a little bit. Tiny bit. Not much. It's really obvious in the Pendolino. Alright, we're allowed up to 120. So let's do that. I figured out why AFB went to 0 too. It's actually reading the independent brake control on my rail driver for AFB, so that's interesting. And 150 we go. A bit high. There we go. Back to 150. You don't want to get too fast on this thing because G&T will whack you. Now we're coming up to another curve and we've got a bit better speed on. So let's pop out the front again and we'll see if we see it tilt this time. Let's go dead center on it. Just going to keep whacking SIFA in case that comes on. I think you see a tiny bit of a tilt, not much. So back into the cab. We're allowed up to 160 briefly and then down to 130. So I don't think I'll actually bother to accelerate because we want to come down to 130. So I'm going to do that thing that they say you should never do. Don't use AFB to slow your train down. But the people who advise that are a bit interesting for the simple reason that is if you apply the brakes, it does exactly what AFB is doing now, which is to use regenerative braking to slow you down. SIFA. Thank you, SIFA. Everybody bow to the great SIFA. SIFA. SIFA is your friend. There we go. We are now down to 130. You notice the speed sign back there said 110, but we're allowed to do... Ooh, tilt! Look at that! It tilts. You can hear SIFA on the outside. That's nice. Now we can go back up to 160 in a moment. After the back of our train passes that, which it now has. So we're allowed to do 160. Off we go. So you do a percentage higher than whatever the sign says, based on the fact that you have got tilting enabled. But if you couldn't be bothered figuring it out, the train will do it for you, and it's there on the HUD. Now, where's the next station? Because I could take you all the way through to Hanau, I suppose. It's not going to take that long. Not at 160 odd kilometres an hour, it'll be fine. Yeah, we're on the fast line now anyway, so we don't get any more stations. I was going to show you how to stop and change ends, but we'll do that at Hanau. SIFA. Like most German trains, it spends half its life yelling at you in German, especially if you do something wrong. Sooner or later, I will probably mess up PZB on this demonstration. It'll be all good. The AFB system did briefly break before it started putting some power on again. Eight Ks to Hanau. Good to show you the PZB functionality too, I suppose, which we should see some adverse signals as we come into Hanau, or at least some slowdown speed zones. The 3, 2, 1 boards remind you that there's a signal coming up. They want you to look. Just felt a nice tilt going around the corner there. It's like, way, way. Got a 150 coming up soon, so we can adjust our speed shortly to bring us down to that. Again, I'm just going to use AFB for that. If you want to turn the AFB off and brake and accelerate for yourself, you certainly can. 5.7 Ks to Hanau, which would suggest that this is a curve coming up. So we don't have to go far down to 150, so I'll just pop it down to 150. It's almost there already. SIFA acknowledged. This is the first time I've run Fulda in this build. We've got a 130 coming up, so we'll just blow down for that. Looks like the speed signs here don't have PZB magnets next to them, which means we're not having to acknowledge them. So we're coming down to 130 in time for that zone, and then we're slowing down even more, down to 100 and then down to 60. Might be a set of points or something, that's 60, because we're still a fair way out from Hanau. It's got a nice tilt going on there. And let's start slowing down. Oops, 130 is fine. Let's start slowing down to 100 though. Got a PZB acknowledge for that speed sign. So we have to get down to 85. We don't have long to get there. Is it going to make it? It's not, so I'm going to brake. Which means I have to throttle off. Are we even going to make it before that runs out? Are we going to get stopped? Zwang Bremsung didn't make it. So I had to get down to 85 kilometers an hour there. I did not react quickly enough, and AFB was not reacting quickly enough. Oddly enough, we're allowed to release. And that's okay. So once we come to a stop, we'll do the PZB dance, which we acknowledge it and release it. Zwang Bremsung. We're back in monitoring now, so we'll bring our PZB back down to 40. And that's 30, but it'll do. And then we can go, in theory. Just bump this back up to 40. No, not 50. 40. There we go. Good little lever. And we'll have to... I'm ignoring that safe to release because we'll probably have to acknowledge the 60 speed up here in a moment. That's fine. Yep. We did indeed have to acknowledge it. So had I released, when the game told me that it could release, it would have actually given me a Zwang Bremsung, a penalty stop, because you're not allowed to release before an adverse signal or speed change. Now we're still in monitoring. You can tell by the fact that the 85 light is flashing, so we can't go above 45 kilometers an hour at this point. And yes, the slowdown in speed was for the bridge and this curve, rather than Hanau itself. But Hanau's coming up, so there's not that much point accelerating all that much. I can't release, even though I'm in monitoring, and it would let me go faster, because we're not allowed to until we encounter a green signal. Which is fine, because we're coming up to Hanau Hochbahnhof anyway. Ooh, that was fun. Sorry about that. At least I got to the mute button in time that time. We do have a signal coming up in front of us that is portraying green, and they're quite interesting little signals because you've got the semaphore arm and you've got the colour lights, which is cool. I have to acknowledge that. We're still in monitoring, but we're coming into Hanau Hochbahnhof anyway, so that's fine. And there I will show you, we'll get in there and it'll end, but I'll return to free roam and then I'll show you how to shut the cab down and go up to the other end. It's not a very complex operation in this one. It's just power off now completely. And we will use the brakes to stop rather than trying to use AFB to stop, because that is something you shouldn't do. It will. You can set it to 0, it will stop you. I'd class the brakes on this thing somewhere between well-buttered pig and a sausage roll.
SIFA. SIFA.
SIFA taking one last chance to kill us. Alright. We can stop there, and that'll be pretty much it. Yeah, right on the money, look at that. Okay, and open the doors. Now, it's going to let us load passengers, so let's go through and shut this thing down. So, first up, AFB to 0, go into the screen here and turn AFB off. So, AFB Oz is now off. Headlights, we're going to go the other way, so put them off. Go down into the little box here. And we'll turn off GNT. Turn off tilting. You can actually leave the safety systems on, it doesn't matter. And we can leave our doors open, that's also fine. Don't think there's anything else we need to do here actually. We're going to put the brake up to brake full application. And I think that's about it for what to do in the cab, so when we unlock the door, we'll go up the other end and we'll take over again. There's no brake key or anything like that in this one. It just somehow knows which end you're at. So it's time to lock the doors. That will end the service. The doors are closing. And that'll probably end it, which is fine. We'll just go continue, return to free roam, and we'll get up from our cab desk here. I was just looking around to see if there's anything for tail lights in here, but I didn't actually see anything unless there's something there. And the rail driver's still going mental. Good to see. Anyway, oops, our reverse is still in forwards. Let's just sit back in the chair, because you do not have permission to drive this service. Oh, an AI's stolen it. Well, I was going to show you how to go up the other end, but an AI's stolen the trains, and now I can't. I thought I hadn't put it in out of forwards, but I probably did. It's just pinched it. Look, Look, the invisible AI. God. Anyway, this is going to take me out of the playable area, isn't it? That's fine, because we'll end the tutorial here as the train drives away into the sunset. I can't even use an outside cam because I'm in a train and I'm not sitting in the chair. So why don't we just go back and sit back in first class while the AI kidnaps us? So that's all good. The invisible AI's kidnapped us, and yeah, okay. That's it. That's enough of a tutorial, isn't it? Surely. Alright. Bye now. See ya. Give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe, that sort of thingy. Lots of other tutorials to look at in the Train Sim World 5 playlist, so please do if you need them. And if you've got any questions, chuck them down below, and I'll see what I can do to help you out. Bye!
We played a game.